Welcome back to another episode, folks. Afro Senpai here. We are going to be reacting to MeetKevin's video, The Truth About Blacks versus White and George Floyd Protests. So before we get into this, if you are looking, or if you just clicked on this video just to see me try to bash MeetKevin or say he's racist or anything like that, you should just stop watching right now and move on to something else, because that will not be the case. If you are here, however, to watch my point of view on what he has said and the current race relations, past, present, and future, then continue to watch. My hope is that you watch the whole thing as opposed to watching a small part of what I say and then blasting in the comments. So before you either like or comment on this video, I ask that you watch the entire thing. And before you make judgments on what MeetKevin has said, I ask that you watch his entire video as well before you like or comment over there. So without further ado, let's go. I have a lot to say on this topic, so we're not going to watch the entirety of what he put out on his video. I just want to highlight some key points that I agree with, or maybe offer some things that I disagree with.
Fact number one, there exists a massive wealth gap between blacks and whites. In fact, the Brookings Institute in February of 2020 published a report showing that the net worth of a typical white family was $171,000. That of a typical black family was only $17,151. That makes whites 10 times richer than black families.
I like how he sets it up to where he's saying, I'm going to give you factual information. I'm not coming from one side or another. I just want you to hear data, statistics based off of the research that I've done, and then I'm explaining everything to you.
Fact number 5. Police are incentivized to make arrests. It should be obvious. In fact, many police forces actually promote their officers based on their stats. A typical beat officer, not...
So if police are incentivized to make arrests, what neighborhoods are they going to patrol? Are they going to patrol high income, high earning neighborhoods? Are they going to patrol low income, high poverty neighborhoods? The neighborhoods where the people are in survival mode, doing whatever it takes to survive.
Fact number 6. The Bureau of Justice Statistics found that poorer households had more than double the rate of violent crime as people in high-income households.
We've already established this. You're in survival mode. You're going to do what you need to do.
Or even just non-poverty households. So if you're in a non-poverty household, you have half as much violent crime as people in poverty households. Said differently, just one more time, if you're in poverty, you're twice as likely to be a victim of violent crime than somebody who's not in poverty. Also, poorer households had a higher rate of violence involving firearms. That's fact number 6. Let's go on to...
Another thing we need to talk about is, in those poor neighborhoods, what do you typically see on street corners? You see liquor stores, you see gun shops, you see grocery stores where there's no like Safeway savings, basically convenience stores, but you're in no way getting discounts. Milk could be costing you $7. You're getting your money taken away from you faster.
Fact number 7. Fact number 7. The Bureau of Justice Statistics also found that the rate of crime was consistent for both whites and blacks amongst poor households. This is really important, and we got to make an important conclusion here. So if the rate of crime was equal between blacks and whites amongst, or sort of under the umbrella of poverty, then we could make the conclusion that race doesn't necessarily cause crime. Poverty causes crime. You're twice as likely to be the victim of violent crime if you're in poverty. But if you're white or black and in poverty, the crime rate's the same.
And what's interesting about that is even when you are at the same rate of committing crimes, black people have a higher probability of being in jail for longer for similar crimes. But it also, again, goes back to wealth, does it not? If you have no money and you get arrested, you're going to get a state-appointed attorney. The state-appointed attorney is going to say, take the plea deal. We're going to get out of here faster. When they take the plea deal, because they don't have proper representation, because they don't have wealth to get proper representation, they stay in jail for longer, whether they did the crime or not.
Fact number 8. Harvard's Joint Housing Studies Group found that when recessions and economic crises occur, something known as the concentration of the poor happens. This basically means there are people who are poor and there are people who are very poor. And when a recession happens, or a pandemic that all of a sudden makes people lose their jobs and makes people poor, poor people tend to move into very poor areas. Now, already overburdened healthcare and educational systems have more people to deal with, which means the quality of service has to go down unless more money comes in.
Which makes sense. So I'm in a house. My cousin's about to lose his job, is about to lose his house. I say, hey, you come live with me. Now we've got more mouths to feed. Now we feel more desperate. Now we feel more agitated. And then crazy things start to happen.
More than half of all police brutality cases are dismissed before the case can ever get in front of a jury because of something known as qualified immunity. Qualified immunity, by the way, is based on a 2-question test, and the one that's used most often is the second question, which is, should the officers have known they were breaking, quote, clearly established law?
Now, in tense situations where you feel like your back is against the wall, most of the time police are probably in survival mode, so things are kicking in, adrenaline's kicking in. In the case of George Floyd, I feel like if you've got a couple officers standing around you and you've got your knee on somebody's neck and somebody's telling you, I can't breathe, it's interesting that it never crosses the mind to just ease up a little bit. I thought cops were trained to de-escalate the situation, and it seems like we are running into too many situations where they are escalating, they are shooting first and asking questions later, and they think they can do whatever they want just because of this rule. Qualified immunity.
So as long as cops could reasonably be expected not to have known that by being violent they were breaking some clearly established law, most cops and police brutality cases end up getting dismissed. This leads to yet another form of structural racism, racial profiling, and discrimination. Because blacks are statistically poorer due to the injustices of centuries of racism, blacks are more likely to be the victim of a crime, which means cops who are incentivized to find crime are more likely to racially profile or discriminate. And since courts protect cops more than victims, blacks get screwed by the American justice system and by American capitalism more than white people.
Black people are in poverty. Because we are in poverty, we are more likely to get the cops called on us because of racism, because of racial profiling, because of the Karens of the world. If you think about how black people are portrayed in our media, we see all the worst imagery depicted of us. So people have an inherent fear, and it's not even like, it's not based off of like experiences, it's based off of like what we see in the media. And again, these are my opinions. What the media likes to do is highlight the worst, the negative, the most eye-catching things that you can imagine. People don't want to hear about happiness, it would seem. They're more attracted to crazy, off-the-wall, ridiculous stuff. I mean, that's why the horror genre exists in movies. Like, we like to see, we don't know, there's something about us. Why do we like to see crazy stuff like that? I mean, it may have to do something like maybe we don't like ourselves. We don't like something that's happening in our lives. So we're looking to see who's got a crappier life than I do. Because then maybe I can feel a little bit better about myself because I don't have it as bad as this person.
Now, yeah, this naturally kind of brings up the question of, okay, well, what came first? Blacks being poor or more crime? And to me, that's a really unfair question to ask.
I can answer that for you. What came first, blacks being poor or more crime? I would argue that blacks, once slavery ended, had zero wealth and crime was put upon them. I don't know why I did that. It just seems symbolic.
Because the real problem is racism came before everything.
Oh, there you go.
Racism came first. My form of protesting is making this video and putting all of the pieces of this puzzle together as best as I can.
And I love that he said this is my form of protest, because I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to see if my comment is still there. Look at that. Boom, boom, boom. Because I wanted to do some sort of protest, but I'm off in Port Angeles where there's not a lot of stuff happening over here. And I was trying to figure out what could I do. And I said, well, I have this small little platform, so I could do what Meet Kevin is doing and have a little video. And this is my form of protest. So I'm thankful and grateful that he uses those specific words. This is his form of protest, so I could do the same.
Violent people, that makes somebody as a cop jaded towards everybody, which increases the likelihood of a cop starting to escalate a situation by screaming.
So he was talking about how cops are moving into a situation kind of on heightened senses because they don't really know what's going on. They could just be entering something that may be unsafe for them, so they're already kind of adrenaline pumping and whatnot.
This is bad. Police need to be trained to find a better balance between de-escalation and protection. You can't only have de-escalation, though, because understandably cops have to be able to protect themselves. But the skewness, or the balance now, is protection is up here, and de-escalation is way down here.
So this is what I was talking about earlier when they go in guns blazing, asking questions after the fact.
The last thing thought of. That balance needs to be found.
So he's going over the different things that he thinks that would help situations moving forward, and I'm going to later talk about the just two things that I think that we need as a black community need to do to rise up out of all of this stuff that we're going through.
This unfortunately means we have to try to figure out as a society to solve these three issues together.
Alright, so I want to thank Meet Kevin for putting out this video. Beautiful information being shared with us. Factual information are statistically backing it up, which is always helpful. Providing examples. Thank you very much. We are now going to phase into my opinions and my thoughts on the video. We'll say a good day to you, Meet Kevin, sir. Here's my take on race relations and racism today.